400 cases of people who wandered into the wilderness but never came back. Accounts of children, people,
was a coyote,
vanishing,
dog, or
seemingly swallowed up by the many endless forests across America, or even later found in ways that defy logic.
An animal.
Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
She described the way that the creature moved as being unnatural.
You've had problems in the neighborhood
It looked
before?
like it was
Yeah, my dog was
uncomfortable
killed here
in its
just
own
recently.
feet.
I don't know what it was, so whatever it was, it was standing out there. I'm out here
It
looking through
looked
the
like
window
a
now and I
vehicle.
don't see anything.
She
I don't want to go
believed
outside.
that what she was looking at
Jesus
was
Christ,
pure
you better.
evil.
Sure. Zia,
Hello?
get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9".
Do you see
The
him now,
cases of
sir?
about
Yes, I'm looking
100
right
people,
at him.
at least, who claim that they've been abducted
hang
by
on.
aliens.
He's
One
right.
of Dr.
Is
Matt's
he in your
patients,
yard,
Linda,
sir?
Yeah,
who says
God,
she
he's
has
big.
been
Faded out.
like since childhood.
Reality. I was just
what I remember
being brought up this
my
tunnel of
wall
light, right?
cakes being
Out
around my
of
bed.
this tunnel, I
And I
just
ran
like
between it
noticed
and ran
parts
out
of my
of the
life
room
that
to
wouldn't
my
even
mother's
occur to me to
to
remember.
hide
Then I
from
knew that I
And
wasn't
I
in
never
my
told
body,
anybody
that I
about
was
that, and I just buried
close
it
to
in
death.
the back
And
of
so
my
then I
mind.
came to the end of this
My brother,
tunnel
he never
and noticed there
spoke
was
about
a man that first
I
started to me
noticed
at first as
a
a place
mist or a fog
and
kind
I
of
saw
moving.
relatives that had
The
died
action, the
that
motion
year.
caught my eye.
Then
It actually
the wizard,
started
without
taking
moving his
shape,
mouth,
taking
spoke to me and
form.
said,
The
"Struggle,
idea
you're
of the
too
Grim
young to
Reaper
die."
went through my head, cloaked figure. And as I was watching, it kept becoming more and more and more distinct to me that this was actually something with some type of presence. It knew I was there. And as I was watching it, it turned and looked directly at me. I felt like whatever this was angry at me. I wasn't welcome. It wanted me out. I had been face to face with a ghost or a demon, a spirit. I'm not really sure what. But this feeling of terror actually was going through me.
Hey everybody, and welcome
Felt
to Real
more that it was
Supernatural
demonic,
Encounters. For my
it was
guest
something
today,
very
I have Brenna, and she's going to be telling a few of her experiences. But before she does, Brenna, could you give a brief bio about yourself?
Yes. Okay. So I'm Brenna. Hi. So I'm from South Louisiana. My family is Cajun. They speak Cajun French, and I didn't know they were really superstitious until this encounter that I'm about to tell you about. I currently live in Texas. And I mean, that's really about it. I go and visit my family every year for Thanksgiving, but it's not, I don't see them that often.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess when you're ready, go ahead and start with your first experience and just tell all of them.
Okay. So my family is super Christian, and they don't, I really never assumed they believed in the supernatural or anything like that based on how they acted, and they pray all the time and go to church, and it was just kind of the norm for me. But when I was 10, my grandma used to babysit me, and she lives in the bayou. Her house backs up to Bayou Manchac and is surrounded by woods. And about a mile down the road lives my cousin. He's 20. She had Parkinson's and was very sick. And so when she would babysit me, my cousin would often kind of walk over to help. It was pretty normal. Well, one night we were watching TV and my cousin showed up, and we had the screen door open, but her screen door shut, regular door open. So cousin comes in and he makes a joke, and he says, "Oh, I was walking over here. I saw a big black dog. It must have been a Rougarou." And now a Rougarou, for those of you who don't know, from the Cajun French standpoint, is pretty much a werewolf. But the only difference is they can change at any time. And when they're in human form, they're still very animalistic and aggressive. They're not, like a werewolf, like they change once a month. And when they're human, it's a little bit different. Also, another difference is, according to legend, when you speak the name like Rougarou, it calls to them and kind of brings them to you. So my grandma, who had Parkinson's, when she heard him say that, jumped up and screamed "Frem la pot." And "Frem la pot" is a Cajun French term for shut the door. I don't speak Cajun French, but I understand it. And so he slammed the door, he locked it, and he asked her what her problem was. And she told him, we don't speak that name in our house. I brushed it off. I was 10. I thought she was being like a crazy old lady. But fast forward to when I was 25, I moved to Texas. But every year I would come home for Thanksgiving to visit with my family. So one year I came home for Thanksgiving, and my parents live in Madisonville, Louisiana, which is right by Lake Pontchartrain and kind of by New Orleans. And their house is surrounded by woods, and they back up to the lake, and it's pretty rural. And my dad wanted to go running at night, and I told him I would go with them because I like running too. So we're running and having a good time, and I saw a big black dog kind of like hovering by the woods. And I don't know why, but like I thought about that encounter with my cousin and my grandma. So I made a joke. And I was like, oh, look, Dad, it's a Rougarou. And he froze and told me to turn around and we were going to walk home. Well, I'm laughing because I'm like, Dad, like we're not even done running. It's just a dog. Like it's not a big deal. Well, he starts booking it back to the house. And I'm like, okay. So I start running with them. And so we get back home and we get inside and I'm like, Dad, what is your problem? Like I made a joke. And he locked the doors and told me to be quiet, and he went to bed. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go to bed and I woke up around like 1 a.m. and I smoked cigarettes. So I decided to go outside and smoke. And my parents have a screened in back porch with a pool. So I went out to the screened in porch and I started smoking, and then I heard something like branches cracking, like something was walking in the woods. So I turned my phone flashlight on and I kind of walked to the edge of the pool by the screen, and I shined it and I saw like a dog, the same dog I saw earlier with my dad walking into the woods. I thought it was kind of weird because the dog disappeared, and then all of a sudden I saw a pair of eyes, like human level, looking back at me. And I thought this was odd because I just saw a dog and they disappeared and there was a human. So I'm thinking maybe it's the owner, but why are you creeping around in my backyard? So I call out hello, and they don't respond. They just kind of keep looking at me. And I was an idiot when I was younger. So I decided I was going to go out and confront these people at 1 a.m. by myself. So I went to the back, screen door, and then I started getting like a weird feeling, and it just something didn't really sit right. So when I started backing up to go back inside, the person started walking towards me. I still couldn't see them. I could only see the reflection of their eyes with my camera or flashlight. So I turned around and I ran inside, locked the door, and my dogs started going insane, barking, woke up my parents, and they asked me what was wrong. And I said it was a deer. Like I didn't want to frighten them. I'm like, oh, there was a deer. They saw him. They were freaking out. So the next day, me and my mom are doing dishes, and I'm kind of still like uneasy about the whole situation. So we're doing dishes and I bring up to her, I'm like, so what's up? Why was Dad so upset the other night? And she was like, well, what do you expect? You spoke its name. And I was like, what, Rougarou? Like I was joking with her. And she threw down her dishes and told me, she was like, you fucking do this yourself. Like, I'm not doing this with you. So she went into her room, and I finished the dishes. And I mean, for the rest of the weekend, we really didn't have any strange encounters. I just thought it was just really odd to me because my family I didn't think they were superstitious until this whole weekend encounter. And now every year when I go back to visit my family, I sometimes see like a dog in the woods, and logically it's probably a house pet, but I always think back to maybe, could it have been the Rougarou or whatever it is that I saw in the woods? But it's pretty much it. I'm not allowed to speak that name anymore with my mom and dad. I have to pretty much keep it to myself. But I don't know. I didn't really believe in supernatural stuff until this whole encounter with my family. And now I'm kind of like questioning things like, is it real? Is it not? But sorry, so short, but that's pretty much what happened. So,
Okay. Well, would you be interested in also telling any of your ghost stories when you were living with your parents?
yeah, I have one other. So my mom and dad used to live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana before they moved to Madisonville. And they lived in a pretty wealthy neighborhood. Their house backed up to a golf course, which backed up to the swamp. And I remember when we first moved in, I was living upstairs by myself in the loft. And the way it was laid out was like, you had the stairs and we had like a playroom, and then we had my room. And the way my bed was positioned was angled towards my door. So at night, when it was dark, you know, my door looked like a black hole. Like I couldn't see anything past that. And I was probably 15, and we had a baby gate at the bottom of the stairs because I have a brother at the time who was 2. And so the baby gate, you know, when people would try to come up the stairs, their foot would typically tap it. So you hear a tap and then footsteps, and you know, everybody did it. So I was laying in bed one night, I was 15, probably about 3 in the morning, and I heard a tap on the baby gate and then someone coming up the stairs. So I'm laying in bed and I'm like, Mom, Dad, like kind of calling out. And there was nothing. Like it was total silence. Like I couldn't hear anything. So I say again, I'm like, Mom, Dad, is that, you know, I have 2 little brothers. I'm like, Parker, like calling out for them, and nobody's responding. Well, I'm terrified. So I lay there and I eventually fall asleep. So the next morning I talk to my mom and I'm like, hey Mom, like, you know, did you come up last night? And she goes, no, I didn't. My dad didn't. And my brother Parker, who was 12 at the time, he wasn't even home. So I'm like, okay, I must have been dreaming. Like that's, you know, I must be hearing things. Well, 3 nights later, I was sitting in the kitchen by myself. I was home alone. And I heard something in my parents' bathroom. So, you know, I went in there to see what it was, and they have an attic door in their closet, and the attic door was open. And it's not one of those doors that can like fall open. It's like you have to put some force into pulling it down. And it was open and the ladder was down. So I fold up the ladder, pick up the door, and I go back into the kitchen and I grabbed a knife. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to do something. So I had this knife, and I think I was playing The Sims on the computer at the time. So I kept playing my game, and, you know, it was fine for the rest of the night. Well, 2 nights later, I'm in my bed sleeping, and I wake up to the burglar alarm going off. My parents had a burglar alarm. And so the alarm's going off, and my mom is running in my room and telling me I need to get up and come with her. Okay, so I go with her, and the cops are outside, and they're doing a search of her house, like outside, inside. It's raining. It's like thunderstorming outside. And I asked my mom what was going on, and she said, so our back door, we had a back door, and then we had our living room, and the living room had 2 French doors. She said that someone tried to kick in the French doors, and that's what set off the alarm. I was like, okay, like that sucks, but you know, we're fine. So I go outside, and we're all under this umbrella, like talking to the cops, and cops come back and they said, you know, there was no evidence of anyone around the house except for, so where the French doors were kicked in, there was an awning that like kind of prevented the rain from covering the ground. And they said that the only footprints they could find were 2 footprints right outside like the French door. So there was no wet footprints leading up to these. It was just these 2 footprints by themselves, nothing else, like nothing around the house, nothing of the sort. So they couldn't explain it, but the conclusion was someone did try to break in, but they found no fingerprints, nothing, only footprints. Okay, so that's not the end because there's one more. 2 nights later, I'm home alone again. My parents figured, it wasn't that late, wealthy neighborhood. Yeah, there was a break-in, but we're all fine. So they left me home alone again. So I was sitting at the computer in the kitchen playing my games. And then our whole back wall was windows. So I kind of looked to the left I just felt like I needed to. And I thought that I saw someone. I didn't really think much of it. And then my dog started going crazy. So I decided, I was going to let him outside. So I go and I let him out and he darts off, and our backyard backed up to the golf course, but we didn't have a fence. Okay. So he books it onto the golf course. And so I'm chasing him down, yelling for him. And he's acting like he's chasing someone, but he's, cause he's not stopping. Like he was 5 pounds, but he was so aggressive. So he was running and running. And so finally I managed to catch up to him, and I pick him up and I walk back home, and he starts like struggling and squirming and like whimpering. So I put him down and he runs over to this tree we had. And so the tree was directly in line to where, like, if you were standing at the tree and looking in our window, you could see me sitting at the computer. Like, it was like a straight shot. So he ran over to the tree. So I walked over and I saw in the mud, there were like footprints, like someone had been standing there for a while. Cause yeah, it was kind of wet and soggy. It's Louisiana. It's not a dry place, but the way that they were, either the person was really heavy or they'd been standing there a while. And so I stood and put my feet like right by the footprints, and I saw that it was a straight shot. Like you could see me sitting at the computer. Like it was right there, like beeline. So this has me freaked out. So I call my mom, she comes home, and I told her about my room, the sounds, like the attic, all these things. And she didn't believe me, and nothing else really sinister happened. That's just kind of stuff I experienced. And then I talked to my brothers, and neither one of them, they're like, no, we don't have any experiences like that. That's just you. So I don't really know what was going on at that house. It was I kind of thought about it because when my parents were building the house, the contractor, he hung himself in our house that he was building. Apparently he was late on set, schizophrenic. He thought he was Hitler, shaved his head, and then hung himself from the rafters in our house when we were building it. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I don't know if maybe it was him kind of meandering around the house, but it was all just, either it was supernatural or there was some creep living in my attic, but that was really off-putting. I'm really glad my parents moved after that, because I did not like going back to that house after all those experiences. And it still kind of bothers me to this day thinking about all those things. But yeah, so that's my only other really supernatural encounter.
Okay. Well, I have a bunch of questions for you. So I guess if you're ready, I'll start with them. So that's kind of cool. This is more of like a comment, I think, that there's such thing as Cajun French. I didn't know that. So
yeah. So Cajun French stems from people from Acadia, Canada, and they moved down to Louisiana. And it's like a different it's like French, but a different dialect. So my grandma can understand French, but people from France who speak French have a hard time understanding her because it doesn't sound quite right. It's more like, like you said, like a Southern thing, like it's the same, but not. So.
Okay. That's pretty cool. Now, when you first heard the word Rougarou, what did you think it was? Because you were 10. So what did you think it meant?
So at the time when I was 10, I had no idea. I thought it was a monster. But when I asked my grandma, she wouldn't go into further detail. So I did my own research on Wikipedia. And that's kind of where I got most of my information about the Rougarou because nobody will talk to me about it in my family.
Okay. You said you seen this dog, and when you seen it, like, did it look unusual? What did it look like?
It really just looked like a black husky. You know what I mean? Like a big black husky, or maybe like a black wolf, but not as big. Nothing unusual about it. It's just like a regular dog.
Could you tell the height of it with it being on all fours?
On all fours. So I'm 5'5", and so on all fours, it probably would have met my chest. So it was like a pretty sizable dog. But it just didn't look unusual. It looked like a regular big dog. So.
Okay. All right. Let's see. My next question is, do you think your parents ever personally experienced a Dogman encounter themselves?
No. I personally think it's more of just, so my dad's the one that's Cajun French. My mom's from Nevada. But I personally think it's from my dad's parents probably telling him about it and putting it in his head to stay away from stuff like that. I don't know if they ever had a personal encounter, but I don't think so.
Okay. So you went outside and you went to go smoke a cigarette. For people that don't know, Rougarou, Dogman, they're all about the same. It's almost being compared to like a werewolf. So there's been encounters where Dogman would attack or stalk people that smoke cigarettes or have perfume or cologne on.
Really?
Yeah. So I find it pretty interesting that you started to have an experience of some sort with a being watching you when you went out there to go smoke. Did you know anything prior before then? Did you look up any new information since you've had your experience?
So prior to my experience, I didn't really look up any information. I kind of heard it when I was little and forgot about it. But after my experience, I did minimal research, like trying to figure out why my parents were so upset with me for doing what I did. But I had no idea that they preyed on people that had perfume or smoke. That's really weird.
But it's just so crazy that, when you went to go out and smoke, it decided to make itself noticeable to you. And
yeah, it was weird.
What was the distance between you and this figure in the tree line?
Okay, so I was behind a screen because I was in the screened-in porch. But between me and the screen and the figure, dog, or whatever, it's probably about 30 feet. It wasn't that far, but I had the screen in between me, so that helped, I guess. Yeah.
Did you feel any kind of fear or any emotion of like terror?
At first, when I thought it was a dog, no. But then when I got closer and saw or assumed it was a human because the eye level changed with my flashlight, that's when I got scared. And when I started backing away, I started advancing. And so that's when I got real scared. So that's when I turned around and ran inside. But at first, no, I was like, oh, it's just a dog. I'll just go see. And then, no, that changed. When I got closer, I started to get more uneasy and felt uncomfortable. So.
Okay. So you watched it go from low level up to human level?
Yeah, I saw the dog walk into the woods, and it was dark and there were no lights. I just had my flashlight on my phone. So I saw the dog go into the woods and then nothing. And then all of a sudden I saw like eyes again, but they seemed much higher, than the level of the dog. So I didn't physically watch it like change. I just went from seeing a dog to nothing to eyes kind of higher up.
Okay. Now, when it was approaching you, did you get to see any of its physical form?
No, because it was so I had my flashlight on my phone, and I knew it was approaching me because I heard like branches kind of cracking, like, so I knew it was walking, and it didn't seem to be getting any smaller. It seemed to be getting closer. So I turned around and I just ran inside. I was like, nope, I'm not gonna wait around for this. So I didn't physically see it. I just assumed that it was getting closer.
So when you seen that figure and when you first seen the dog when you were younger, did you hear any type of like telepathic or mind speak inside your head? Any ideas pop up when you were seeing the figure?
No, it was just more of like an uneasy feeling. There were no thoughts or anything. Not when I was younger, because I didn't see it or anything. It was just more of my last encounter when I got kind of closer to it is when I felt uneasy, but I never had any kind of thoughts or anything.
Okay. When you went outside to smoke, what year was that?
That was 2016.
Okay, so it's kind of recent a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you seen it anymore or ever experienced another encounter like that?
No. When I go to my parents now, when I go to visit them, I don't go running with my dad at night, and we don't go by the lake. I just kind of stay inside. I do go outside to smoke still, but I don't, I kind of honestly tend to ignore like the woods. I don't like to think about it. So I haven't experienced anything like that since then.
It was funny when you said that you went inside, your mom was doing dishes, and even though they didn't want you saying the Rougarou, you said it, and then she got so mad and threw her dishes down, said you could do them then. That's funny.
Yeah.
That had me laughing. So now with this ghost experience that you had, I want to first say, holy crap, someone killed themselves in your house when they were building your house. That's crazy, your parents' house. So so when that attic door came down, because you were playing Sims and everything, and you walked in there and you seen the steps unfolded down in front of you, like what was you feeling? What did you think?
Holy shit. I was like, no, ma'am. And I just try. So I've always tried to be I really like science and math, and I've tried to be really rational. So I'm like, maybe it fell and the gravity pulled them down. Like I just like I didn't know what to think. But I was terrified. I folded them up and I went and grabbed a butcher knife out of the kitchen, but I kept playing Sims. I'm like, clearly I'm not that concerned, but scared the shit out of me. I was like, when I told my mom and dad later, they didn't believe me. They were like, oh, so the attic fell and the stair. Okay. And I'm like, no, but it did. So now I was terrified. It was not good.
Now, what year was this when that happened?
So that's probably like 2009.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always have visualizations of like when I'm working at someone's house and it's nighttime and they have an attic, and I'm like, man, and I pulled it down just to check it out before, but to get up to go to the bathroom something at like 12 a.m. and notice that the attic door is open with the steps down, that you feel like your whole soul just like fell to the ground, stomach dropped and everything.
I really, because like the way the house is laid out is like, it was like a big open layout. And I'm like, well, if someone was here, I must be able to see them, right? But then I'm like, well, what if they were hiding in the closet? I don't know. Like it just, because if you think about it, when you pull down an attic, like there's a lot of tension in the springs. Like it's not an easy thing to pull down. And then, so now I was terrified. I did not like that.
How did you get the courage to put the steps back up and close the attic door?
I think it was more of, well, if it's still up there, keep it up there. So I just like did it real quick and slammed it. Like, if you're up there, stay up there. I don't want you down here. So
Wow.
yeah, I think it was adrenaline on top of pure fear. So,
Now, so now this alarm goes off, you know, and the cops get called or they come from the alarm. What do you think put those footprints there and set off the burglar alarm?
I don't know. Like, I think so. Our house backs up to that golf course, which backs up to a swamp. And there's a lot of like stories of like swamp monsters and stuff like that. But I think it was just weird that there were no footprints leading up to the door. It was just like a set of wet footprints by the door. So maybe like the dead contractor, maybe
Yeah.
he's haunting us. I don't know. I really didn't have like I said, I was super logical person. So I try to always like, you know, think logically, but if I look back on it, I would say the dead contractor, sadly.
Yeah.
I don't know what else it could have been.
Why do you think this entity is paying so much attention to you and like just staring at you, doing these, you know, paranormal events that are happening when you're alone at the house?
Well, a little background on this guy. He was my dad's best friend since my dad was 5. And I'm the oldest, and I was friends with his daughter, the guy that committed suicide in our house.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was just more maybe like he was closest to me out of me and my 2 brothers, or maybe it was just opportunistic because I was always alone. Like my brothers were never home alone. Like it was always either me and them or just me, you know, like, so I don't know if it was maybe he took the opportunity of me being alone, or if he was just connected to me because I was friends with his daughter. So I'm not sure.
Wow. What do your parents think about this? What do they think about, first off, him, you know, dying inside their house and how he ended up dying? And then what do they think about all these events that are happening in the house to you?
So at the time, my dad was pretty devastated because, like I said, they were friends since they were like little kids. And I never brought up that I thought this entity could be him. I just always told them about what was happening when they weren't home. And they never really believed me. They just told me it was my overactive imagination and stuff like that. Like they didn't, I don't know if they said that because they were scared too. Maybe they experienced things when I wasn't home. But as far as I'm concerned, they just pretty much told me I was an overactive teenager. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, that answers most of all my questions, Brenna. So before we end the episode, could you give any closing comments or advice for people that could, you know, experience the same issues or even experiences?
So don't say Rougarou. I know I just said it, but don't talk about it. If you see one, go inside. And I think they're mostly common in like South Louisiana, South Texas and stuff. So, but I'm not an expert. I don't know. Other than that, I mean, not really, because I didn't really handle it the best myself. So I really can't tell you what to do. I can just say you don't speak its name, apparently. So that's about it.
Okay. Well, Brenna, I appreciate you for coming on. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on and tell your stories. And thank you, audience, for watching. It's been another episode of Real Supernatural Encounters, and we'll see you guys later. See you later, Brenna.
Bye. Thank you.